Hello and welcome to In Touch with Ray the DA and Officer Dawn. I'm your host, Jenna McNeil. In this week's episode, Ray and Dawn discuss new efforts for legislation on guns involved in Kentucky murders. As of now, guns used in murders are resold to the public by auction, with the state reaping the rewards. The Commonwealth Attorney's Office in Fayette County has been fighting to stop this action and destroy these guns out of respect for the victims' families. Ray discusses the consequences of reselling these guns and also new events in our office. Tune in to hear more details. Thanks for watching.
Welcome to In Touch Crime Beat. I'm Officer Don with Fayette Commonwealth Attorney Ray Larson.
Out of jail, okay? Don't mess up.
And those are the people, those repeat offenders, the ones that go to prison. And
I say we're the #1 rated radio show in the whole country.
I'm Officer Don with Fayette about this week on the news. And it had to do a little bit with, some would say, gun control. Are you pushing a little gun control effort here, or what is that? Something about you don't want guns back on the street?
well, what let me talk about Mike Nazaro, the father of Trent Nazaro, who, and you are very familiar with that case because I hate to say anything good about you, but you're the one that broke that case. You're the one that got the witness to come forward and be willing to testify against Shane Ragland. And Mike, there's this rifle. I can't even remember what kind it is.
It's a .243
Weatherby. Yeah, that's right. And it had a scope on it. And it's they only made 5,000. Now that sounds like a ton, but in the manufacturing of weapons business, that's not a lot. And it's apparently a pretty high-end gun, and that was used to assassinate Trent Nazaro by this no-count Shane Ragland. And so I told Mike Nazaro, I said, well, you know what happens with that gun, don't you? After all this is over, he says, no, what? I said, it has to be sent to state police and auctioned. It's all likely that it's going to be back on the street. Well, he was outraged that the gun that was used to kill his son could be back on the street. And he began to talk to me about that. And we started looking at the weapons that had been used to kill people or to shoot police officers or to shoot firefighters in the course of, or while they're in the line of duty. And it became a victim's issue. You know, there's a, you know, at some point, what do we owe these people? A little peace of mind that the gun that killed their loved one is not going to be back on the streets? Or let me walk through I took photographs of some guns. One is the rifle that Mike Nazaro says, look, I own guns. I believe that people have a right to own and possess guns. I'm a great supporter of the Second Amendment. You just don't have a right to own or possess this gun, the one that killed my son, a killer gun. Now, and then you talk about Brenda Cowan. Everybody remembers Lieutenant Brenda Cowan, who was a firefighter, and she was shot and killed by a guy named Patrick Hutchinson. And he also shot and wounded a James Sanford, a firefighter. Shot him in the head. I mean, and the family of Brenda Cowan wants that gun destroyed. They don't want it back on the street. And, you know, they're all gun owners.
Yeah.
But they don't want the killer gun back on the street. Sanford doesn't want it back on the street. Then you got Tim Russell. Tim Russell used to be a Lexington patrol officer. He was called to a domestic dispute, a domestic violence situation. And the guy's name of all things was Jerry Lee Lewis. Mm-hmm. And Jerry Lee Lewis looked like an old, it was a 6-inch barrel a revolver. And he shot Tim. When Tim got there, he shot him right in the neck. Now, and it did severe damage to his vocal cords, and he had to retire from the police department. But fortunately, he's back as a civilian evidence collection guy, forensic services guy. He wants that gun destroyed. You got Ed Lingenfelter. Remember Ed? Mm-hmm. Now, Ed made a traffic stop down on Vine Street. And some character just walked up and shot him. Shot him in the face, shot him in the arm. One of his arms was, he had to go from being a right-handed guy to being a left-handed guy. Think about that. And he had to have all sorts of reconstructive surgery. He retired. He's over at the Department of Criminal Justice Training now. A good guy. He wants that gun destroyed. And then you got Aaron Kidd. Aaron Kidd was chasing a robber. He got shot in the face. Shot right in the face. He fortunately turned his head, and it went in right below his nose, and then out the side of his face, cheek. Now he can. Guess what? He continued to chase the guy, and ultimately was in a shootout, and the guy was killed. But Aaron wants that gun destroyed. He don't want to see it back on the street. And so that's where we are, you see. So I made a proposal that we destroy guns that are used to kill people, killer guns, or guns who have been used to shoot a police officer or firefighter while they're in the line of duty. And it doesn't amount to a lot of guns. So I went over and talked to, I called Greg Stumbo. He said, that sounds like a pretty good idea. Let me set you up with a meeting over here in Frankfurt. So I went over and met with Bob Dameron, Representative Bob Dameron, who represents Jessamine County and a part of Fayette County. So he kind of represents some of the people I represent. And so he had some woman in this meeting, and I talked essentially what we were trying to do, just about what I've said so far. And he said, well, I don't see any support for that in the legislature, and to be honest with you, Ray, that's just a non-starter over here. So I said, so your answer is no. And then I looked at this woman who is representing NRA, and I said, so what's your position on this thing? Well, I believe if we passed such a thing, it would start us down a slippery slope. And I said, well, I said, so your answer is no, too, no support. And that was in 2011. Now, let's talk a little bit about this Sandy Hook, Connecticut case. 26 innocent people were killed by this character. Did you know that the guns that he used, if that happened in Lexington, Kentucky, killing those 26 people, do you know that Kentucky law would require that whatever guns were used to kill those 26 people would be required to be sent to the state police, auctioned off, and get back on the streets? Now you tell me what kind of an insult that is to the families of those 26, mostly kids. Mm-hmm. That's just an insult. This is what I propose, to do away with killer guns, guns used to shoot police or firefighters while they're in line of duty, is a victim's rights piece of legislation. It has nothing to do with gun control. Because I'm probably a stronger guy about people being able to defend themselves. First of all, if this legislature continues to release people from prison at the rate they're continuing to do it, then don't you dare take their right to defend themselves away.
Tune into the following stations to hear the full episode.